Morning. A few weeks ago we did the rail walk to Parksville, and that time we went down this way. This time we're gonna go the opposite way towards Ladysmith. It's a shorter route. It'll take maybe 6 hours or so, 25 to 26 kilometers. The weather's certainly not as good today, as you can see, but hopefully the rain will hold off, and I'll be checking in along the way. So thanks for joining me again today, and we'll see you along the rail route. For today's trek, we're going to be mostly spending our time in Nanaimo. Some paths parallel to the rail line, some path will be directly on it. We'll also be hanging out next to the highway for a bit of this route, but we will pass by some smaller communities such as Journies on our way to Ladysmith. It'll be a little different, I think, than the route that we took up north towards Parksville. This rail line, for example, is actually still used. It's one of the few stretches of the E&N that is. Basically, there's an industrial site further up, and it's just carrying freight down to the harbour. Not a long route, but it does run, I think, once a week or thereabouts. Anyways, we'll just keep walking. I'll check in, as I said, along the way. If you are interested in the walk we did to Parksville, I'll put the link in the description. This section of the rail route crosses roadways at odd angles, and actually one of the few areas that the railroad lights actually make sense, because there is an active train that comes by here once in a while. But the odd angles is more so because of the street structure of Nanaimo, which is not set up as a grid per se, but more like a radiating spiral from the center, which is the harbour. This is the old city quarter in or close to downtown Nanaimo. The rail line sort of just goes next to it. But yeah, it's a great spot to check out if you're in the area. This is the old Nanaimo rail station, now converted to a pub and coffee shop. For some sections of the E&N rail through Nanaimo in particular, there's pathways that run parallel to the rail itself, making for a nice walking or a biking path. This isn't, of course, for the whole length by any stretch, but for some portions of it, it provides a nice respite from the walking on the rails itself. I'll have to look to see what they're doing out in this area. There is a gravel trail that runs parallel to the tracks a little ways behind me. It's possible they're extending it further, which will be nice if it's intended as a public access. I guess we'll see when I get a chance. Yeah, I really do think they're putting in a pathway. I wasn't even aware of this. Well, like that for poor research, I guess. May just be gravel for a bit, but who knows? They do have a paved pathway up on the northern side of the rail route. If they are able to extend that pathway further in parallel to the railroad track through the city, that's I think that would be a great add to broader use and the like. So I'm looking forward to this stretch being completed. The rail route on the southern side of Nanaimo isn't quite as developed in terms of recreational use and pathways and so on as the northern part. So we're spending a lot more time on the rail than we did until we basically, it's almost like when we left Nanaimo last time we did this journey when we were going towards Parksville. The tracks are pretty good. It's great for the fall at the moment, so the colors are quite out. In fact, getting later in the fall, so a lot of the trees are losing, more of them are losing their leaves, and there's a lot more on the ground. But so far, no rain. Weather's quite pleasant. I just don't have the blue sky as a backdrop, but other than that, it's quite nice to walk today. Well, you can see the one on the right here. That's heading over to the harbour. That broke off from the main line just a little bit back on the track here. We're going to follow the main line, which is the non-operational portion of the line. The one on the right is actually still used. You'll continue on, cross over the old highway, and eventually loop back into the harbour. We're going to be taking this route, which is ultimately heading towards Esquimalt. So, well, let's keep going. Here's the return of that trunk line that went down to the harbour, now returning back to the main line. We're getting close to Highway 19. We are about, I think, just over 5 kilometers or so along this route, and maybe an hour or so in. So we still have a bit to go. But yeah, making reasonable progress, I think. And so far the weather has been holding out quite nicely. The fall colors have made this walk quite enjoyable. All right, we'll check in later. Well, we're just going under Highway 19 now. This is the bypass around Nanaimo. The old highway used to go right through the center of the city. You can also see the Parkway Trail sort of following the length of the bypass highway. This is a multi-use trail, running, cycling, whatever, and we'll take you all the way up to Woodgrove. Also some artwork underneath this bypass, but anyways, we're at 6 kilometers or so, just over maybe an hour and 15 in. Let's keep going. We've left Nanaimo proper, really, next to the Highway 19, it's right beside me here, heading up towards the overpass that takes you down to the Duke Point Ferry Terminal. The main section of the highway will send you down to Victoria. So we're gonna, I think, based on what I've seen, we'll probably be following or parallel to this highway for a bit of time, at least pass through the airport and so on. We'll see after that, but so far it's going well. There's a few people on the track scene, but otherwise pretty quiet outside of the traffic noise, of course. Okay, let's keep going. As I mentioned in the last video where I was walking to Parksville, I have a long-standing goal of going all the way from Esquimalt to at least Nanaimo and maybe to Comox Courteney. That segment I did to Parksville. This segment I'm doing now. Subsequent segments that I do between other stretches on that route are basically to check out the line, see how it is, and lead into my planning for that trip that I hope to do maybe even next year. But as I walk on these rail lines, and I mean there's all this discussion around their usage and the like, it does get me thinking about some of these other sort of grand pathways and grand trails that are around the world. I mean, we have the Trans-Canada Trail, and in Canada, from Nanaimo, you can go all the way to Victoria on various routes, interconnected routes that are scenic and trail-based and often multi-use. Once you go north of Nanaimo, I don't believe that's the case. But in any event, you know, just like, say, I have relatives who have done the El Camino in Spain, done other walking routes in Sicily and the like. These are long, sort of hut-to-hut style routes, but I wonder if we could not do the same here. Could we not have like an equivalent of a El Camino of Vancouver Island or something along those lines? It's just thoughts that come into your head when you're walking on these routes. But maybe, you know, if you're interested, maybe do hashtag El Camino VI, and who knows, maybe this would be part of the conversation. I was a bit mistaken. The rail line actually goes quite a ways from the freeway, but we do return back to it at Nanaimo River. You'll cross the trestle and then get near the airport there. At that point we'll be reasonably close to it. But for here we diverted quite a bit into East Wellington area. A lot of more farmland on one side anyways of the track. And definitely the track is harder to navigate in this stretch. The ties are both slippery and pretty elevated, so you do have to walk on them. And yeah, there's not really a side route to take through much of this. But other than that, it's pretty quiet through this stretch. A lot of birds flying around, and I said we're in sort of farming area, at least on the one side, so it's quite a nice stretch. Anyways, just thought I would check in. Cheers. Here we have a small trunk line to the left. We came from this direction on the right hand side here. On Google Map, this line doesn't actually go very far. Must be an industrial site or maybe an old mill or something that used to be up there. I don't know. I would have to check on that. But yeah, it doesn't actually go too far from this stretch. But we're going to keep going towards the Nanaimo River crossing. Here's the Nanaimo River Road. It goes up parallel to the Nanaimo River all the way to Nanaimo Lakes. For those who are taking the Trans-Canada Trail, the Trans-Canada Trail comes out from Extension, just further up there, and then eventually connects to this road a number of kilometers up it. There isn't a crossing at that point for the Nanaimo River, so if you're intending to continue on the Trans-Canada Trail, you would have to walk down that road, the Nanaimo River Road, and then connect here, walk a short ways down the road to a freeway, possibly, to the crossing, which is near just before the airport. It's also where the bungee zone and all that stuff is. Anyways, once you've done that, then you can continue on the track. Trans-Canada Trail will continue on along with Haslam Creek and the likes. But it is a bit of a pain. I wish it'd be nice if they could get that crossing worked out, and so you're not having to divert so far to continue on that trail network. Anyways, we're not impacted by that on this route, but it is just a side note for a more typical route that you might want to take. All right. This is the crossing over the Nanaimo River. It's the only stretch, said, that the Trans-Canada Trail, you have to walk down to this point and cross over, and then just on the other side you'll walk back another road, reconnect with the Trans-Canada Trail, and eventually go over Haslam Creek and all that sort of stuff. So it's a little unfortunate you'd have to do that on that trail. We also have the bungee zone, which you would have saw just over to the right, and then of course the freeway is on the left hand side. Nanaimo River drains the Nanaimo Lakes into the Salish Sea. Anyways, this marks about the halfway point, I think just over the halfway point to Ladysmith. So let's, the weather seems still to be agreeing with us. Hopefully it stays that way, and we'll continue on our journey. Well, we are crossing we're crossing Haslam Creek, and then we're also crossing the road that will lead us up to the Trans-Canada Trail. There's another foot crossing you could do instead. It's more the intentional foot crossing. You can see the river is running pretty strong now. Looks very nice up ahead, the trees, and we have the freeway over to our left here. Anyways, the second trestle bridge we've had. Let's keep going. We're just passing the Nanaimo airport. Not a very nice clean line of sight to the airport, so can't take a picture very easily here. It is starting to rain a little bit. Some drops coming down. Not enough that I'm gonna pull out the rain jacket or anything, but hopefully it just stays to this level. It'll still keep going on in the rain, but it won't be nearly as enjoyable, especially if it gets heavy. Anyways, we are, as I said, just passing the Nanaimo airport. We're I think just between 15 and 16 kilometers. We're about 3.5 to 4 hours in, so making reasonably good time. Probably about 2/3 of the way there, and yeah, we'll just keep going as we've been going. Cheers. We're just passing through Oyster Bay. We should be on the home stretch now. Likely no more than 5 kilometers, maybe even 4 kilometers until we get to Ladysmith. So another hour at the top end. This stretch, especially past from the airport onwards, has been quite beautiful. This time of year, the trees are really very vibrant in color. It probably would have been much even better if the weather was somewhat better. But it's a pretty nice walk through. It's been very quiet. I haven't run into anybody once left the Nanaimo city limits. But I suspect we'll start to get a little busier as we get towards Ladysmith. Certainly the highway noise is becoming something that I can actually hear now. Anyways, we'll check in a little bit. Yeah, it's going right so far. We just passed the, I think, 22 kilometer mark. Probably looking at 4.5, just over 4.5 hours in. We don't have too far to go. Maybe half hour, 45 minutes. We're about to cross underneath the highway and get to the other side of it. And I think we'll just be following that into Ladysmith proper. We're basically the outskirts of Ladysmith now. So, not too far to go. It is noisy here at this point because we're right next to the highway. But that's not probably going to change a whole lot between now and the end. We'll check in a little bit. We're getting to that point in walking where my feet start to feel the distance and my shoulders always come back and feel like they're losing circulation and so on. There's not a whole lot around that. It's been a long-standing thing, but haven't really stopped this whole time. So moving forward, I think it is about the 25k mark or so that I just sort of have to take a bit of a rest before continuing. Today is a relatively short walk, all things considered. The one we did to Parksville will work out to probably be at least 2 more hours and probably another 10 to 12 kilometers. So I guess it is what it is. We're just coming into Ladysmith now. We're getting to the end of our walk here. The bus to return back to Nanaimo, the station's just up ahead. The total distance, I think, is going to work out around 23 kilometers and time around 5 or so hours. So not too bad. It's a pretty easy walk compared to Parksville. The rail in general was in better shape, but it did have more of the up and downs because of the crossings here. Some minor trestles along the way, nothing too significant. I think less views than the route to Parksville, but with the fall colors and so on, this area was certainly a lot nicer in terms of that aspect. So certainly worth the walk, especially in the fall. Anyways, no real issues to report on this stretch. It's pretty straightforward. Looks like in Nanaimo, as we saw that there's some work to be taking place to expand some of the park or the walking pathway, or maybe multi-use pathway that's next to the rail, and at least in part of the south Nanaimo area. That'll be nice. It is a bit of a stretch so you should get, plan for the 5 or 6 hours. But other than that, it's pretty nice walk. Anyways, well, thank you for joining me on this journey. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and all those other things. Just so I know that you're interested in the content, and I'll try and make more of it. I do welcome you and invite you to come along with me the next time. So until then, cheers.